The scent of brewing coffee and aged paperbacks always clung to Marcus M.J. Jones's small apartment, a comforting aroma that spoke of late nights and quiet aspirations. In his early 20s, Marcus was a young black man defined by a fierce determination and a boundless compassion, qualities forged in the bustling, diverse urban neighborhood that had always been his home. Every corner of his meticulously organized apartment, from the stacked textbooks by his bed to the neatly folded laundry, reflected a disciplined nature born of necessity. Resources were tight, but Marcus believed in order, in making the most of every scrap. His deepest devotion was reserved for his grandmother, Nana Rose. She had raised him since he was a boy, her unwavering love and quiet strength shaping him into the man he was today. Her wisdom, often dispensed in gentle proverbs, was the bedrock of his character. Now it was Marcus's turn to build a better life for them both, to repay a fraction of the boundless love she had given him. His hope, his singular focus, rested on a crucial scholarship program with InnovateX, a prestigious tech company renowned for its cutting-edge work and burgeoning community initiatives. The scholarship wasn't just a stepping stone, it was the only path to a university degree, the only way he could lift them out of their strained circumstances. He carried the heavy burden of knowing that failure meant shattering Nana Rose's quiet dreams for him, dreams she rarely articulated but held deep within her heart. Marcus's routine was a relentless rhythm of work and study. He juggled 2 part-time jobs, one at a local grocery store stocking shelves, the other at a community library, assisting with digital literacy classes. His evenings were dedicated to studying, poring over textbooks under the soft glow of a desk lamp, the city lights a distant hum outside his window. He'd often find himself sketching intricate flowcharts and code sequences in the margins of his worn notebooks. An innate, almost intuitive grasp of complex algorithms and digital systems, largely self-taught from discarded computer manuals. This hidden talent was a private world, a place where his mind soared freely, far beyond the constraints of his daily life. He carried a subtle, almost imperceptible scar on his left wrist, a faint mark from a childhood accident. He'd been trying to fix an old, temperamental computer for Nana Rose, a treasured hand-me-down relic, when a faulty power supply had sparked and shocked him, sending a jolt through his small body. He rarely thought about it now, but subconsciously that brief, painful encounter with failing technology fueled his desire to master tech, to bend it to his will, to make it work reliably for people like Nana Rose. Despite his demanding schedule, Marcus always found time for kindness. He'd often offer his last spare change to a homeless person he passed on his way to work, accompanying the coins with a genuine smile and a brief, heartfelt word. His rare free moments were spent volunteering at the neighborhood's struggling community center, teaching basic coding to wide-eyed kids, hoping to spark a similar passion in them. He'd patiently walk Mrs. Peterson, the elderly lady from the 3rd floor, up the stairs, even if it meant being late for his bus. These small actions, woven into the fabric of his busy life, were not grand gestures, but quiet reflections of his inherent good nature, solidifying the genuine kindness that lay at the core of his being. This morning was different. This was the morning of his final decisive interview for the InnovateX scholarship, the culmination of years of quiet effort, of late nights, of countless sacrifices. He woke before dawn, the silence of the pre-dawn city comforting in its promise of a new day. He meticulously ironed his best, and only, suit, a slightly worn navy blazer and crisp white shirt that Nana Rose had insisted he buy for such occasions. Every button, every crease, was perfect. He practiced his answers one last time, reviewing key points about InnovateX's mission, aligning his aspirations with their values. His future, and Nana Rose's peace of mind, hung in the balance. The city was just beginning to stir as Marcus left his apartment building, the air cool and crisp with the promise of a sunny fall day. He had calculated his route to the InnovateX headquarters with precision, factoring in every possible subway connection and a short walk. He was cutting it close, but he would make it. He had to. As he reached the bottom of the steps, a familiar figure caught his eye. It was Mrs. Gable, a kindly, elderly neighbor from the 2nd floor, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was struggling with 2 overflowing grocery bags, her arms trembling slightly under the weight. Just as Marcus was about to greet her, One of the flimsy plastic bags gave way. A cascade of bright red apples spilled across the cracked pavement, rolling haphazardly towards the street. Marcus's heart gave a familiar pang. He glanced at his watch. The InnovateX interview was in precisely 65 minutes. He had no time to spare. Every fiber of his being, every desperate, ambition-driven thought, screamed at him to keep going, to pretend he hadn't seen. This was his future, his only shot. But then he saw Mrs. Gable's face, etched with a mixture of exasperation and quiet distress, her frail hands fluttering helplessly over the scattered fruit. He remembered Nana Rose's gentle voice. Always lend a hand, Marcus, especially to those who need it most. He thought of the countless times Nana Rose had cared for him, sacrificing her own comfort for his well-being. This was a moment, small perhaps, but one that resonated with the deepest values instilled within him. Without a second thought, his internal clock momentarily silenced by a louder, moral imperative, Marcus stopped. He dropped his portfolio case onto the ground, the sound almost swallowed by the budding city noise. He knelt swiftly, gathering the rolling apples with practiced ease, his movements quick and efficient. "Mrs. Gable, let me get those for you," he said, his voice warm and steady, a genuine smile gracing his lips. Mrs. Gable looked up, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. "Oh, Marcus, dear, you'll be late. I'm so sorry." "Nonsense," he replied, already scooping the last apple into the ruptured bag. "It's no trouble at all." He carefully transferred the groceries into his sturdy canvas backpack, then offered Mrs. Gable his arm. "Let me walk you up." They ascended the stairs slowly, Mrs. Gable leaning lightly on his arm, her small hand clutching his sleeve. They exchanged brief, warm conversation about the unseasonably warm fall weather and Mrs. Gable's prize-winning roses. He lingered just long enough to ensure she was safely inside her apartment, her groceries placed on the counter. As he finally turned to leave, he glanced at his watch again. 50 minutes. He was well behind schedule now. A cold knot of anxiety began to form in his stomach. He picked up his portfolio, his suit feeling suddenly heavier, the polished shoes less confident. He hurried out of the apartment building, his long strides quickening, his mind racing through alternative routes. The save the cat moment was over. Now, the quiet storm of consequences was brewing. The hum of the subway car, usually a comforting rhythm against the city's ceaseless thrum, became a low throb of anxiety in Marcus's ears. He was sharply dressed, his notes for the InnovateX interview clutched in his hand, his mind meticulously reviewing every detail. He was cutting it close, but the subway, for all its occasional quirks, was typically reliable. He had factored in contingencies, calculated his arrival down to the minute. This was his future, laid out on a precise, unbending timeline. Then, with a metallic screech that vibrated through the floor of the car, the train ground to a jarring halt. A collective sigh, then a murmur of frustration rippled through the packed carriage. Marcus's heart lurched. He glanced at his watch. His precious buffer time was evaporating. An announcement crackled over the intercom, distorted by static. "Attention passengers. We regret to inform you of an unforeseen delay, a major traffic obstruction above ground, and a minor technical issue with this train's signal relay. We anticipate a significant hold." Panic, cold and sharp, began to coil in Marcus's stomach. A significant hold meant he was going to be late. Not just a little late, but late enough to miss the crucial window for his interview. This was the unavoidable problem, a sudden, unforeseen obstacle directly threatening his only shot at success, his entire carefully constructed future. He closed his eyes for a moment, picturing Nana Rose's hopeful smile, the quiet pride in her eyes. The thought of disappointing her was a physical ache. He couldn't just sit there. He couldn't let his future slip away without a fight. When the announcement followed with permission to exit at the next unscheduled stop, a rare occurrence due to the severity of the traffic above, Marcus didn't hesitate. He pushed his way through the murmuring crowd, a man on a desperate mission. As he emerged from the subway station onto a busy city street, the chaos was overwhelming. Car horns blared in a dissonant symphony of frustration. Taxis were bumper to bumper, their exhaust fumes hanging heavy in the cool morning air. Frustrated commuters spilled onto the sidewalks, already overloaded with pedestrians. It was a concrete jungle of gridlock and shattered schedules. Marcus's alternate route, usually a quick dash across a few blocks, now looked like an impossible labyrinth. He pulled out his phone, frantically searching for another option, his fingers flying across the screen. Every app, every traffic update, painted the same grim picture. Total gridlock. He calculated the walking time. It was too far. He was already too late. A wave of despair washed over him, a crushing weight that stole his breath. He saw his dream, shimmering just out of reach, then dissolving like mist. Just as he was about to give in to utter dejection, his eyes caught on something out of place. Pulled over to the side of the bustling street, a pristine classic car, a vintage Rolls-Royce glinting silver even under the overcast sky, was stalled, steam hissing faintly from beneath its hood. Its elegant design was a jarring contrast to the urban grit around it. One of its white wall tires was conspicuously flat, completely deflated, a flat patch against the asphalt. An elderly man, impeccably dressed in a tailored, expensive suit that bespoke old money and established power, struggled futilely with a rusty lug wrench. He was clearly out of his element, his movements stiff and uncoordinated. His hands, gnarled with age, shook visibly with effort and mounting agitation. He muttered under his breath, his frustration palpable even from a distance. He was visibly frail and distressed, his attempts to loosen the lug nuts proving utterly fruitless. Marcus checked his watch again. He had, at most, 10 minutes to make it to the InnovateX building to salvage any chance of an interview. Every fiber of his being screamed to keep going, to ignore the scene, to fight for his own future. This was his scholarship, his Nana Rose's hope. He had sacrificed so much for this day, but he saw the old man's genuine distress, the helplessness in his eyes as he wrestled with the recalcitrant lug wrench. He looked fragile, on the verge of collapsing from exertion and frustration. Marcus remembered Nana Rose's frequent lessons about helping those in need, especially the elderly. "Compassion, Marcus," she would say, her voice soft but firm, "is never a weakness. It is always a strength." The internal conflict was acute, a silent battle raging within him. His personal dream, his carefully planned future, was on one side. On the other was an immediate, undeniable need for help from a stranger. The man was a stranger, yet his vulnerability resonated deeply with Marcus's compassionate nature, with every value Nana Rose had instilled in him. He also noticed a familiar-looking briefcase on the passenger seat of the Rolls-Royce, adorned with a subtle abstract logo, a series of interlocking geometric shapes, almost like circuit board tracings. It was a design he had seen before, often, during his meticulous research into InnovateX's various divisions. He didn't consciously connect it, his mind too consumed by his dilemma, but the pattern registered somewhere in the back of his mind, a fleeting, unseen irony hanging in the air. After a split-second, agonizing internal debate that felt like an eternity, Marcus made an irrevocable decision. He knew, with a crushing certainty, that this meant missing his interview. It meant potentially shattering his dream, failing Nana Rose. The logical part of his brain screamed at the absurdity of it, but the old man's helplessness, the values instilled by Nana Rose, and an almost instinctive moral imperative to act when he saw someone truly struggling, overrode his ambition, his fear, his desperation. He took a deep breath, pushing the cold knot of panic down. He stepped forward, his resolve firm. "Sir," he said, his voice calm and clear, cutting through the din of the city. "Let me help you with that." He didn't wait for a reply, already rolling up the sleeves of his pristine white shirt, a quiet hero stepping into the breach, sacrificing his own pressing need for another's. The Rolls-Royce, an emblem of a world far removed from his own, became the unexpected crucible of his character, the site of a silent, profound choice that would alter the course of his life in ways he could never imagine. The lug wrench, stiff with rust and age, finally yielded to Marcus's determined grip. With a grunt, he loosened the last bolt, the heavy wheel coming free with a soft thud. He worked swiftly, efficiently, his movements precise despite the crisp, clean suit he wore. The old man, still slightly flustered, watched him with a mixture of surprise and a touch of lingering condescension. He clearly hadn't expected such practical skill from a young man in a suit, least of all a black man in this part of town. "There you go, sir," Marcus said, rolling the flat tire aside and effortlessly lifting the heavy spare from the trunk. He positioned it, aligning the bolts with practiced ease, his muscles straining but holding firm. The air still carried the faint scent of something metallic, something amiss beyond the flat tire. As Marcus tightened the final lug nut, Mr. Vance's expensive smartphone chirped insistently. He answered, holding the sleek device to his ear. Marcus, wiping grease from his hands with a handkerchief he'd pulled from his pocket, couldn't help but overhear. "Mr. Vance, thank goodness! Where are you?" A frantic, high-pitched voice clamored from the phone. "The board meeting is about to start. Your presence is critical for the new AI initiative. Mr. Sterling is already getting impatient." Mr. Vance's brow furrowed. Yes, I'm almost there, Evelyn. Just a slight mechanical issue. Tell Sterling to hold his horses." He ended the call, a flicker of irritation crossing his aristocratic features. He didn't notice Marcus's momentary pause, the faint echo of InnovateX and AI initiative registering in the back of Marcus's mind, but fading instantly as his focus returned to the task at hand. He was too consumed by the mechanics of the car, by the urgency of getting this man on his way, to connect the dots. The Rolls-Royce and the impeccably dressed owner were simply a roadblock, a delay that had cost him his future. Marcus finished securing the tire, then stood, stretching the kinks out of his back. He noticed the faint wisp of steam still curling from beneath the hood of the Rolls-Royce, more persistent than he'd initially thought. It wasn't a mere vapor from the flat tire. His innate, almost intuitive grasp of complex systems, a talent he'd honed by dissecting discarded electronics and devouring technical manuals, kicked in. "Sir," Marcus said, pointing to the wisps of steam, "it looks like you might have another issue, beyond the tire." Mr. Vance scoffed. "Nonsense, young man. It's just residual heat. The car is perfectly fine now." He reached for the driver's side door, eager to be gone. "If you don't mind," Marcus insisted gently, "just let me take a look. I think it's coming from the engine. It might be something small, but if it's not fixed, it could cause a much bigger problem." He instinctively opened the hood before Mr. Vance could object, revealing the gleaming, intricate machinery within. Marcus's eyes, with their almost uncanny ability to dissect and comprehend complex schematics, immediately went to work. He scanned the meticulously arranged components, the web of wires and pipes. His gaze lingered for a moment, then snapped to a specific point. There it was. A subtle, almost invisible fault in a critical sensor housing, nestled deep within the car's advanced, digitally controlled engine. It was a hairline crack, easily missed, allowing a faint escape of coolant vapor. It wasn't a catastrophic failure yet, but it was an intermittent glitch, a silent, ticking time bomb that would have led to a complete engine shutdown on the highway, far worse than a simple flat tire. He didn't have the right tools, or any tools for that matter. But Marcus was nothing if not resourceful. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, twisted piece of wire, a stray piece of copper he'd picked up from a discarded circuit board during his late-night studies, a habit of collecting interesting components. With an almost surgical precision, using only his strong, nimble fingers, he began to work. He manipulated the wire, bending it, twisting it, creating a delicate, improvised bypass that would shunt the signal around the faulty sensor, stabilizing the system just enough to get the car safely to a mechanic. It was a sophisticated, self-taught hack, a stroke of ingenious, unconventional problem-solving. He worked quickly, his brow furrowed in concentration, his movements economical and confident. He explained briefly, his voice calm and clear as he worked. "This sensor here," he murmured, pointing with a clean finger. "It's not reading properly. It's sending intermittent signals to the engine control unit. I've bypassed it temporarily. It'll hold long enough for you to get to a service center, but you need to get it replaced." Mr. Vance, initially annoyed by the delay, was now utterly astonished. He stood frozen, watching Marcus. He saw the speed and precision with which Marcus had changed the tire, but it was the intuitive diagnosis of the engine fault and the ingenious, improvised solution that truly impressed him. This wasn't just mechanical aptitude. It was a profound, almost instinctive understanding of complex digital systems, a rare intellect at play. He recognized a brilliance far beyond that of a mere good Samaritan. He recognized the spark of a true innovator, a mind that saw solutions where others saw only problems. He was the first to see Marcus's light, the raw, unconventional genius that lay beneath the polite demeanor and humble circumstances. Without a word, he silently took note, a new plan, an audacious idea, beginning to form in his shrewd, powerful mind. Meanwhile, across town, in the gleaming, minimalist conference room at InnovateX headquarters, Marcus's scholarship interview slot came and went. Mr. Sterling, the ruthlessly ambitious vice president of talent acquisition, looked at his watch, a sneer twisting his lips. He was a man obsessed with protocol, with order, with the precise, predictable pathways of success. Any deviation, any unexpected hiccup was a personal affront. He had a natural disdain for anything unconventional, a trait he shared with his distant cousin Victor Sterling, though their paths rarely crossed. "Marcus Jones," Sterling announced, his voice clipped and dismissive. "Not present. As per policy, we move on." He looked at the other, less influential members of the scholarship panel, his gaze daring them to object. This demonstrates a clear lack of commitment, a lack of professionalism. Unacceptable for InnovateX. One junior HR manager, a young woman who had been impressed by Marcus's application, hesitated. "Sir, perhaps there was an emergency? The traffic this morning is quite bad." Sterling cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Excuses are for failures, Ms. Jenkins. InnovateX demands punctuality and reliability. His application is withdrawn. No further inquiry necessary." He closed the folder with a decisive snap, effectively sabotaging Marcus's chances, ensuring no one would bother to check on him, to understand the circumstances. For Sterling, the world was black and white, success or failure, and Marcus Jones had, by his rigid metrics, simply failed to appear. He was the man blinded by rigid process and a superficial assessment of character, already digging himself into a hole that would later force him to recognize his profound error. Back on the bustling street, Marcus closed the hood of the Rolls-Royce. "That should get you where you need to go, sir," he said, stepping back. Mr. Vance, still processing the sheer ingenuity he had just witnessed, reached into his wallet. "My boy, I don't know how to thank you. This is truly extraordinary. Here, please, take this." He extended a thick wad of bills. Marcus gently pushed the money away. "No, sir. No need. Just glad I could help." He smiled, a genuine, selfless smile. He might have missed his interview. His future might be in ruins, but he had helped someone in genuine distress. That, in itself, was its own reward. Mr. Vance looked at him, truly looked at him, for the first time. He saw the integrity in Marcus's eyes, the quiet strength in his demeanor. He saw a diamond in the rough, a rare combination of intellect and character. "What's your name, son?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Marcus Jones," he replied. "Just Marcus." Mr. Vance nodded slowly, a glint in his eye. "Marcus Jones. I won't forget that name." He slipped a small, elegant business card into Marcus's hand. It was simple, embossed with only a name and a private number. "If you ever need anything, Marcus, anything at all, call me. I owe you more than you know." Or then, Marcus took the card, feeling the smooth, thick paper. He glanced at it, then slipped it into his pocket without much thought. His mind was already moving on, consumed by the devastating reality of his missed interview, the weight of disappointment settling heavily on his shoulders. He didn't realize the card, a small, unassuming piece of paper, held the true key to a future far grander than any scholarship. He merely saw it as a polite gesture, a token of thanks from a grateful stranger. He turned and began to walk away, his shoulders slumped, the city's roar now a symphony of personal failure. The walk home was a blur of concrete and simmering despair. Marcus moved through the city's afternoon rhythm like a ghost, the vibrant energy of the streets a jarring counterpoint to the hollow ache in his chest. He replayed the morning's events, each step he took to help Mr. Vance a fresh stab of regret. He had sacrificed everything, and for what? A fleeting moment of altruism that had cost him his future. He found Nana Rose in their small, warm kitchen, kneading dough for her famous apple pie. The scent of cinnamon and rising yeast usually filled him with comfort, But today, it felt like a cruel reminder of the life he might not be able to provide. He tried to hide his dejection, forcing a smile. But Nana Rose, with her uncanny ability to read him, saw straight through it. "How was the interview, mijo?" she asked softly, her hands still rhythmically pressing into the dough. Marcus hesitated. Then the truth, bitter and heavy, spilled out. He told her about the subway, the traffic, and finally, about the old man and the flat tire. He omitted the part about diagnosing the engine issue, about the business card, too ashamed to admit he'd essentially thrown away his chance. He ended with a shrug, trying to sound nonchalant. "Guess I just missed it. Not meant to be, Nana." Nana Rose stopped kneading. She turned, her flour-dusted hands gently taking his face. Her eyes, deep and knowing, held no accusation, only profound understanding and unwavering love. "Oh, Marcus," she murmured, her voice a balm. "My dear boy, you did what was right. Your heart is your compass. The universe has a way of knowing." Her words, intended as comfort, only deepened his silent shame. He felt like he had let her down, despite her unwavering faith. Later that day, the cold, impersonal email from InnovateX landed in his inbox like a death knell. "Due to your failure to attend the scheduled interview, your scholarship application has been withdrawn. We wish you success in your future endeavors." The words were sterile, final. The crushing blow he had anticipated now materialized, solid and undeniable. He read it once, twice, then closed his laptop, the screen going dark, mirroring the sudden dimness of his hopes. A few days later, just as Marcus was settling into the grim routine of searching for more part-time work, something utterly unexpected happened. A sleek, obsidian black limousine, silent and imposing, pulled up outside his humble apartment building. It looked completely out of place on their busy, unpretentious street, drawing curious glances from neighbors. A formally dressed chauffeur stepped out and approached their door, a crisp white envelope in his gloved hand. "Mr. Marcus Jones?" the chauffeur inquired, his voice low and professional. Marcus, who had answered the door, stared, bewildered. "Yes?" "An invitation, sir," the chauffeur said, extending the envelope. "From InnovateX. Mr. Harrison Vance requests your immediate presence at the InnovateX headquarters for a personal meeting." Marcus took the invitation, his fingers brushing against the thick, expensive paper. InnovateX, Mr. Harrison Vance. The name. It couldn't be. He thought of the Rolls-Royce, the old man, the subtle logo on the briefcase he'd vaguely noticed. A knot formed in his stomach, not of anxiety, but of sheer confusion. Was this a mistake? Had they somehow found out he'd helped someone related to the company? Was this a disciplinary hearing for his missed interview? He felt the familiar weight of the corporate world's overwhelming power, a world he now feared had utterly rejected him. He arrived at the InnovateX tower later that afternoon, feeling acutely out of place. The building was a shimmering beacon of glass and steel, soaring into the sky, a stark symbol of technological prowess and immense corporate power. The lobby was a symphony of polished marble, hushed whispers, and the soft chime of advanced elevators. He was guided through security, past sleek digital displays showcasing InnovateX's cutting-edge projects. Every step deepened his sense of isolation. His modest suit, once his best, felt threadbare against the gleaming opulence. His humble background seemed to scream from every fiber of his being. He was navigating an arena that had already, it seemed, judged him and found him wanting. He was ushered into a luxurious yet sterile waiting area on one of the executive floors. The chairs were plush leather, the artwork abstract and expensive. The receptionist, impeccably dressed, smiled politely. "Mr. Vance is running slightly behind schedule, Mr. Jones. He'll be with you shortly." Marcus nodded, his mind a whirlwind. He was alone, utterly and completely. There was no one to advocate for him here, no one to explain his missed interview, no one to vouch for his character. He thought of the automated rejection email, its cold words searing themselves back into his memory. He replayed the scenario in his head, the gridlocked subway, the old man's distressed face, his own impulsive decision. Had it all been for nothing? He pulled out his phone, scrolling through old pictures of Nana Rose, her kind face a quiet anchor in the storm of his uncertainty. He knew this was his one desperate chance to explain himself, to somehow salvage his reputation, but he had already been dismissed by the very system he hoped to join. He was acutely aware that his window of opportunity to make an impression, to change their minds, was incredibly narrow. He felt utterly out of place, a small, hopeful figure in a vast, indifferent corporate machine. The minutes ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity. He reviewed his now useless scholarship application in his mind, feeling the heavy weight of his decision. He imagined Mr. Sterling, the VP of Talent Acquisition, whom he vaguely recognized from InnovateX's online profiles, a stern, unsmiling face, dismissing him outright. The hero's isolation was palpable. He was a single, vulnerable individual against the monolithic power of a corporation, a man of heart battling a system of rigid protocols. Then a new wave of fear washed over him. What if this wasn't about the scholarship at all? What if Mr. Vance, the CEO, had recognized him, and this was about something else entirely? Could he be angry about Marcus's impromptu repair of his expensive car? Could this be a complaint, or even a threat for touching his vehicle? The sheer power of the man and the company he represented was overwhelming. He knew nothing of corporate politics, of the inner workings of such a behemoth. He was utterly at their mercy. He was acutely aware that his window of opportunity was incredibly narrow. He'd have to explain his actions, justify his character, and somehow overcome the initial judgment that had already been cast upon him. He clutched the armrests of the plush chair, his hands damp with nervous sweat. He tried to compose himself, to think of the words he would use, the humble, honest plea he would make. But every scenario played out in his mind ended with the same cold, dismissive rejection. The silence of the waiting room pressed in on him, amplifying his inner turmoil. He was a man with a singular, intuitive talent, facing a world that judged only by conventional metrics. This was his ultimate test, and he knew, with a sinking heart, that he might already be too late. Suddenly, the door to the inner office opened, and a stern-faced assistant emerged. "Mr. Jones, Mr. Vance will see you now." Marcus stood, his legs feeling strangely heavy, as if weighted down by his anxiety. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever awaited him. He straightened his tie, pushed his shoulders back, and walked towards the open door, stepping into the unknown, ready to face the music. The panoramic office of Harrison Vance, CEO of InnovateX, was a breathtaking expanse of glass and steel, offering a dizzying view of the city sprawling beneath. But Marcus saw none of it. His focus was entirely on the immense polished mahogany desk, behind which sat the very man he had helped, the distinguished elderly gentleman from the Rolls-Royce. "Mr. Jones," Mr. Vance said, his voice surprisingly warm, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Please, have a seat." Marcus, still reeling from the unexpected summons and the oppressive grandeur of the office, took the offered chair. His heart hammered against his ribs. He barely registered the other figures in the room. 3 impeccably dressed individuals seated around a glass conference table and standing stiffly to the side. A familiar stern face, Mr. Sterling, the VP of Talent Acquisition. Sterling's gaze was fixed on Marcus, a mixture of cold disdain and barely concealed irritation in his eyes. "Marcus," Mr. Vance began, his voice calm, cutting through the tense silence. "I want to thank you again for your extraordinary assistance the other morning. You truly saved my day." He paused, his eyes twinkling slightly. "And, as it turns out, you saved quite a bit more than that." Mr. Vance then turned to the assembled board members, his voice gaining a resonance that commanded attention. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I want to introduce you to Marcus Jones. And I want to tell you a story." He proceeded to recount the entire flat tire incident, his words painting a vivid picture for the astonished listeners. He described the gridlock, his own frustration, and his futile struggles with the rusty lug wrench. He spoke of Marcus's unassuming approach, his quiet efficiency in changing the tire, and his refusal of any payment. "But that was merely the beginning," Mr. Vance continued, a dramatic pause hanging in the air. "As Mr. Jones was leaving, he noticed something I and my highly trained mechanics had completely missed." He then detailed Marcus's intuitive diagnosis of the subtle engine fault, the invisible hairline crack in the sensor. He didn't have a single tool, not even a screwdriver, but this young man— Mr. Vance gestured towards Marcus, his voice filled with profound admiration. With nothing but a piece of wire he pulled from his pocket and an ingenious mind, improvised a bypass. A sophisticated temporary hack that ensured my car and I reached this meeting safely, preventing a catastrophic breakdown on the highway. He held up a small, twisted piece of copper wire, the very one Marcus had used. It looked utterly insignificant against the backdrop of the luxurious office, yet in Mr. Vance's hand it became a testament to brilliance. "This," he declared, "is a testament to ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a profound understanding of complex systems. Qualities, I might add, that are priceless." A murmur went through the board members. Their eyes, initially curious, were now wide with dawning comprehension and awe. They exchanged glances, whispers of astonishment filling the air. This was clearly not the kind of personal meeting they had anticipated. Sterling, who had been growing increasingly pale, suddenly stiffened. He saw his carefully constructed narrative crumbling before his eyes. This was his moment to salvage something, anything. "Sir, with all due respect," Sterling interjected, his voice tight with forced composure. "While Mr. Jones's actions were commendable, it must be noted that he missed his scheduled scholarship interview. That demonstrates a lack of commitment, a lack of professionalism. InnovateX has strict protocols for attendance, Mr. Vance. We cannot overlook such deviations from procedure." His eyes, filled with a desperate ambition, challenged Marcus to respond, to defend himself. The atmosphere in the room solidified, every gaze turning to Marcus. He felt the weight of Sterling's accusation, the unspoken implication that his moment of kindness was merely an unprofessional lapse. The memory of the cold rejection email, the crushing disappointment, flashed before his eyes. He opened his mouth, ready to explain, to plead his case, to justify his actions. This was the breathless moment, the precipice where his hope teetered on the edge of failure. He had sacrificed everything, and now it seemed he would be condemned for it. But Mr. Vance, with a calm, deliberate movement, raised a hand, silencing Sterling instantly. His eyes, now focused entirely on Marcus, were no longer twinkling, but sharp with a deep, knowing intensity. "Mr. Sterling," Mr. Vance said, his voice quiet but laced with an undeniable authority, "the purpose of the InnovateX scholarship program, and indeed, the very essence of InnovateX itself, is not merely to identify academic excellence or rigid adherence to protocol. We seek profound problem solvers. We seek individuals of ethical integrity. We seek those who demonstrate practical application, ingenuity, and, above all, the ability to prioritize human need above personal gain, especially in unexpected circumstances." He paused, letting his words hang in the air, then turned fully to Marcus. "Mr. Jones, your actions the other morning, far from showing a lack of professionalism, demonstrated precisely the qualities InnovateX seeks. You faced a choice between your personal ambition and the immediate, undeniable need of a fellow human being. You chose compassion, you chose ingenuity, you chose selflessness." A profound wave of relief washed over Marcus, so powerful it almost buckled his knees. He looked at Mr. Vance, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Therefore," Mr. Vance continued, his voice ringing with conviction, "it is my distinct honor and the unanimous decision of this board to not only offer you the InnovateX scholarship, effective immediately, but also an immediate, full-time, accelerated internship within InnovateX's cutting-edge AI development division, and upon your graduation, a clear path to a leadership role within the company." The words hung in the air, almost too grand, too improbable to comprehend. Marcus stared, utterly stunned. He wasn't just being vindicated, he was being elevated, given an opportunity that transcended his wildest dreams. The full-time internship, the direct path to AI development, the clear leadership trajectory. It was an almost unbelievable reward for a choice he had made out of pure moral instinct. The witnesses' reaction was immediate and powerful. The board members, initially surprised by Sterling's interruption, then captivated by Mr. Vance's powerful defense, now erupted in a chorus of murmurs, their faces transforming from astonishment to unreserved admiration. They had heard of Marcus's missed interview, dismissed as a simple failure of adherence to procedure. Now they saw the true narrative, the extraordinary integrity and intellect behind it, presented with undeniable evidence. Sterling's face, initially pale with discomfort, turned a sickly green, then scarlet. His jaw tightened, his eyes darting frantically between Marcus and Mr. Vance, his professional judgment publicly, unequivocally, and humiliatingly refuted. He was no longer a powerful VP. He was a defeated man, exposed and humiliated. He stammered, trying to interject, but no words came. Marcus, overwhelmed, felt a surge of pure, unadulterated elation. This was his vindication, not just a scholarship, but a powerful public recognition of his true worth, a validation of every difficult choice he had ever made. He looked at Mr. Vance, then at the board members, then finally at Sterling, who refused to meet his gaze. A quiet strength settled over him, a profound sense of having been seen, truly seen, for the first time. The room buzzed with a mixture of shock, admiration, and a palpable sense of justice. He had faced down despair, risked everything, and emerged triumphant, his integrity validated in the most profound way possible. The vibrant energy of the InnovateX headquarters, once a source of overwhelming anxiety for Marcus, now hummed with a different kind of electricity. The tension from the CEO's office had dissipated, replaced by a quiet hum of renewed purpose. Elias, still reeling from the unexpected validation, felt the weight of the moment settling in, a profound sense of relief washing over him. He had faced down both his personal despair and the corporate skepticism, and emerged victorious. His immediate vindication was palpable in the reactions of the board members. Their initial awe at Mr. Vance's recounting of the flat tire incident slowly transformed into genuine admiration as the CEO articulated the true value of Marcus's actions. They offered their congratulations, some even shaking his hand with a newfound respect that bordered on reverence. For Marcus, this quiet acknowledgement, this public recognition of his worth, was more profound than any grand accolade. However, the ripples of his selfless act, combined with Mr. Sterling's rigid arrogance, were already beginning to cascade through the corporate hierarchy. Victor Sterling, the now visibly disgraced vice president of talent acquisition, stood rigidly to the side, his face a mask of mortification. The humiliation was absolute. He had publicly dismissed a talent that the CEO himself had just lauded as integral to the company's future. His rigid adherence to protocol, his quick dismissal of Marcus as unprofessional, without a second thought, was now exposed as a profound lack of judgment. The true consequences for Sterling began swiftly and decisively. Mr. Vance was not a man to tolerate incompetence, especially when it jeopardized the company's core values and its future talent pool. Sterling's past decisions, his tendency to prioritize process over genuine potential, his dismissive attitude towards anything outside his rigid framework, were all brought under intense scrutiny. His public attempt to undermine Marcus, to cling to his flawed judgment, was the final nail in his coffin. Within days, the internal review was complete. Victor Sterling, stripped of his senior position, was demoted to a minor administrative role in a distant, overlooked division. His once promising career trajectory was permanently derailed, his professional credibility shattered beyond repair. It was a swift and proportional fall of the adversary. Meanwhile, the officials and staff at the InnovateX Human Resources Department, the ones who had initially processed Marcus's withdrawal and sent the curt rejection email, were profoundly impacted. They had acted on Sterling's orders, bound by the protocols he so strictly enforced. Now, witnessing Mr. Vance's public endorsement of Marcus, they realized the profound error they had inadvertently been a part of. The young HR manager, Ms. Jenkins, who had timidly suggested an emergency, felt a pang of shame for not pushing harder. Days later, Ms. Jenkins herself sought Marcus out, approaching him tentatively as he settled into his new workspace in the AI development division. "Mr. Jones," she began, her voice earnest, I want to apologize. We followed protocol, but we failed to see the bigger picture. We should have investigated. We should have known." Her face reflected genuine remorse. What you did, risking your own future for a stranger, it was truly inspiring. We were wrong. This was the beginning of the repentance of the misunderstood. The entire department began a silent, internal reevaluation of their talent acquisition policies. A subtle but significant shift towards a more holistic and human-centric approach, directly influenced by Marcus's experience. Marcus, now fully immersed in his new role, thrived. The InnovateX scholarship, once a distant dream, was now a tangible reality, providing him with access to the best education and resources. But it was the accelerated internship within InnovateX's cutting-edge AI development division that truly ignited his passion. He found himself surrounded by brilliant minds, working on projects that pushed the boundaries of technology. His intuitive grasp of complex algorithms, his self-taught brilliance, proved invaluable. He brought a fresh, ethical perspective to technological development, constantly asking not just can we, but should we. This was a profound, meaningful new opportunity, far beyond what he could have ever imagined for himself. Weeks later, Marcus found himself sitting across from Nana Rose at their kitchen table, the familiar scent of her home cooking filling the air. He had spent the first part of the evening animatedly describing his new work, the incredible technology, the brilliant people. Nana Rose, her eyes shining with unspeakable pride, simply listened, occasionally nodding, a quiet smile on her face. Now, the conversation had quieted, and Marcus found himself reflecting on that fateful morning. The memory of the flat tire, the old man, his split-second decision, it all felt like a lifetime ago. He confessed to Nana Rose, his voice low. "You know, Nana, when I saw that old man struggling, I almost didn't stop. I almost just kept going. I thought about the interview, about what it meant for us. I was so scared I'd let you down." He looked at his grandmother, a deep honesty in his eyes. "I chose him. I chose to help a stranger, even though I knew it would cost me everything." Nana Rose, wise and gentle, reached across the table and took his hand, her touch comforting and firm. Her gaze was steady, unwavering. "Marcus," she said, her voice soft but filled with profound truth. "My dear boy, your heart is your compass. When you choose to do right by others, when you act with kindness and integrity, the universe has a way of doing right by you. Always follow your heart, mijo. That's where your true strength lies." She paused, squeezing his hand gently. "And you didn't let me down, Marcus. You made me prouder than you can imagine. You proved that all the lessons, all the values, they took root. That's the greatest success any grandmother could ask for." Marcus looked out the window at the familiar cityscape, now imbued with new meaning. He felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude, a quiet understanding that his greatest reward came not from the scholarship or the prestigious internship, but from his greatest sacrifice, from the integrity he had unknowingly displayed. The initial shame he had felt for failing had completely dissipated, replaced by a powerful sense of validation. The world had indeed done right by him in its own unexpected way. This was their reflective dialogue, a quiet moment to process the emotional landscape they had traversed, to solidify the profound lessons learned. His daily life had changed irrevocably. He still lived in the same neighborhood, refusing to forget his roots, but his concerns were no longer about making rent or scrounging for textbooks. He was now actively contributing to a future he once only dreamed of. He could provide for Nana Rose, giving her comfort and security she had long deserved. But more importantly, he was building a legacy, one rooted in the quiet strength of his character. 10 years later, the city skyline, once a distant, intimidating silhouette, now represented the vast canvas of Marcus M.J. Jones's impact. The InnovateX Tower, a gleaming spire of innovation, stood as a testament to his journey, but his true legacy stretched far beyond its glass walls, weaving into the very fabric of the communities he served. His hair now carried distinguished streaks of silver at the temples, a mark of his wisdom and the tireless dedication that had defined the past decade. He moved with an air of profound confidence, a quiet gravitas that commanded respect without needing to demand it. Marcus was no longer just a talented young man. He was a celebrated figure, a lead architect for InnovateX's groundbreaking humanitarian AI projects, specializing in resilient urban infrastructure and accessible technology for underserved communities. His childhood scar, once a subtle reminder of technological failure, was now a distant memory, replaced by the confident, capable hands that shaped the future. He led teams that developed AI-driven solutions for everything from smart, sustainable public housing to intuitive digital literacy platforms for seniors. Nana Rose, though older, was thriving. She lived comfortably in a beautiful, accessible home Marcus had lovingly provided, just a few blocks from his own. Their bond was stronger than ever, her wisdom still his anchor, her pride in him a constant source of quiet joy. She often visited the local community center, using the very digital literacy tools Marcus's team had developed, beaming as she navigated the internet with ease. Beyond his corporate achievements, Marcus was deeply committed to giving back. He established the Nana Rose Scholarship for Compassionate Innovation, an endowment that funded young, disadvantaged students who demonstrated not only academic promise, but also a deep commitment to community service and ethical technological development. He actively mentored these students, sharing his story, instilling in them the values he lived by, that true ingenuity lay not just in technical prowess, but in an unwavering sense of empathy. Many of his scholarship recipients had gone on to found their own socially conscious tech startups, creating a ripple effect of positive change. His team at InnovateX, under his ethical guidance, had developed a revolutionary self-repairing public transport system. Inspired by that fateful day's subway breakdown, this system was designed with multiple redundancies and ethical algorithms, prioritizing passenger safety and seamless connectivity, ensuring that no one would ever be stranded due to a minor technical glitch or traffic jam. It was a network that symbolized connection, reliability, and compassion, serving millions across the city. He also partnered extensively with community centers, establishing cutting-edge tech education programs for inner-city youth, providing access to resources and opportunities he could only have dreamed of as a boy. One crisp autumn evening, as the city lights began to twinkle against the darkening sky, Marcus found himself walking down a bustling street. The air was cool, carrying the familiar scent of urban life. He had just left a meeting at a new community hub he had helped design, a vibrant space where young and old could gather, learn, and connect. As he walked, his gaze, ever observant, landed on a scene a few yards ahead. An elderly woman, her arms laden with grocery bags, stumbled slightly, a single apple rolling from a loose bag and coming to rest near his foot. She let out a small sigh of exasperation, her frail hands fluttering helplessly. Marcus paused. He glanced at his watch, not out of urgency, but out of habit. He had nowhere to be, no interview to rush to. He saw the woman's face, etched with a familiar, fleeting distress. A gentle smile touched his lips. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible echo of that long-ago morning, a familiar call to action. Without a second thought, instinctively, he bent down. He retrieved the apple, then offered his hand, his voice warm and steady. "Here you go, ma'am," he said, his voice kind. "Let me help you with those." The woman looked up, her eyes wide with surprise, then soft with gratitude. She didn't know who he was, this successful, respected man of technology. She just saw a young black man, impeccably dressed, offering a simple act of selfless kindness. As he walked beside her, carrying her heavy bags, guiding her gently up the street, a prototype of InnovateX's new public transport vehicle glided silently by on the elevated tracks overhead, its sleek lines reflecting the city lights. It was a beacon of progress, a symbol of a future built on connection and compassion. And in its quiet passage, in the simple, ongoing act of kindness he was performing, Marcus saw the powerful, enduring legacy of his own journey. His second spring was not just a season of personal flourishing. It was a continuous spring of renewal, of hope, and of relentless, compassionate service. The story had come full circle, ending not with an end, but with a vibrant, enduring beginning. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies, and that light always finds a path, even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.